The following podcast is meant to inform and entertain. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the beliefs of others, experts, or anyone capable of thinking. Occasionally, we may go off topic or say something offensive. We're just a couple of humans trying to create better lives for our animals. Yours truly, The Bark. P.S. Please don't sue us.
This is The Bark, a pet podcast unleashed.
Candy, we made it.
We made it.
We're here.
We're doing this.
We're doing it. So for those of you that don't know us or haven't heard us talk your ear off about this, my name's Megan. This is Candy to my right, your left. We are members of Laws Saving Paws, a 501c3 out of Columbia, Tennessee. We're just going to take a minute, tell you a little bit about what brought us here, why it's important, why you should care. And hopefully all of that will just captivate you so much that you want to continue watching or listening. So just to dive in a little, my name's Megan. Like I said, love animals, love dogs. Don't hate cats, but I definitely love dogs more. And moving down here from New Hampshire, I recognize the really big problem with animal overpopulation and just all of the crazy things that stemmed from it. And so I started volunteering at my local shelter as soon as I had moved down here, got really into it, but I'm such a big picture person. And gosh, we would have adoption events and we would have 5 dogs adopted out one day. And then I'd come back into the shelter the next day to volunteer and there's 6 new dogs. And I was like, what on earth is going on here? So again, like I said, my big picture approach, I'm a problem solver. Like I like to kind of dissect things and figure out why something is happening. And so I paused and, no pun intended. Oh, God. Did not mean to do that. I stepped back and I was like, surely there's an organization, there's something, there's a group of people who have banded together and they're figuring out this animal crisis and why this is happening. And, maybe I'll redirect my efforts there. And oddly enough, I came up empty-handed. There are a lot of folks kind of independently doing things, advocating. But again, I failed to find a super concerted effort to address the root of the problem and not just the reactions to the problem. So Laws Saving Paws was born into fruition fall of 2024. I had no idea what I was doing. Some days I wonder why I did this because it's a lot of work, but it's all good. But I'm here. And honestly, on that path, I met Candy. Yep. I was introduced to Candy, who had always wanted to start a podcast as well. So Candy, tell me about your background. Tell the listeners.
Awesome. Okay. So my background, I've been in rescue, first started with cats and then got into dog rescue. I've been in it for a little over 10 years now. And what you hear is we're not going to rescue our way out of this problem. Somebody has to look at the big picture. Somebody has to address the overarching issues. And then rescue. I mean, right now, rescue's so far behind. Everybody's full. We don't have enough fosters. We don't have enough resources. So that's where I wanted to get into the podcasting. Those are the initiatives that Laws Saving Paws is trying to bring forward. Better legislation, better implementation of that legislation, better resources for the pet population. This group and this podcast is not all about rescue. It's about pet ownership. It's about the cost of this pet overpopulation, even to people who don't have pets. We're all impacted. We're all affected. And this is something that I've really wanted to do is look at the big picture. There's this whole arena, this whole population, this whole underworld of the pet overpopulation issue that I feel the common consumer has no knowledge of. Mm-hmm. And once they start learning about it, they're like, wow, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that there was a flood of dogs surrendered to shelters and rescues after COVID because people had to go back to work physically and couldn't find a way to integrate their dog into that working out of the house lifestyle. So we actually had a foster who joined the rescue I was with at the time. She's like, I didn't think about it. I just didn't think about it. So those are the kind of the things that people just aren't aware of that's my mission, is to bring it to the table, make people aware, and create that bridge to help the pet population.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's awesome. And I'm so happy I've met you. Like, for real. It's been because I don't have a lot of experience in rescue. I've met some folks down here who do it, and I've seen how some fosters, some of these situations may turn into, I mean, listen, I'm just going to say it, hoarding.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I've seen it, and I'm like, what on earth? So it was just, meeting someone like you who's kind of like seeing firsthand what's going on. And then again, just like stepping back, and you're like, it's like you were saying there, people don't understand the ramifications of what they're doing. And when they're making donations to organizations, like, it's fantastic that they want to support the well-being of animals and whatnot. It's just, I think it's so important that people understand, like, your money is great to support the short-term fix, but like, let's step back and look at the bigger picture, because we're standing in our own way.
Right. We are.
You know?
We really are. And I think people are contributing to the problem without even realizing it. And that's where we have this with Laws Saving Paws and the Bark. We have this soft approach where we're not trying to cast judgment. We're trying to inform, because I keep seeing this repeat of people making the mistakes that contribute to the problem. And then once they learn what that mistake was, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that again. I want to meet those people before they make the mistake.
Yes, 100%. So. And I think, I'm so glad you said that, because I think what I want to spend a little time talking about too, at least just in this opening episode, where you guys, you listeners, want to learn a little more about us and what we do, is I think our approach, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, is very different than other organizations. Like, I'm constantly, when I'm at an event and I've got a booth set up and people see Laws Saving Paws, like, there's a fear in their eyes. And I'm like, we're not PETA. We're not PETA. I swear. We're not going to like make you stop wearing fur. Like, it's fine.
Or
you know,
meat or things like that.
Yeah, it's not like that. Yeah. So I think what makes us really unique is our approach. And like you said, we really, listen, there are some bad apples out there. Yeah. We're not going to deny that. But for the most part, we believe that people are doing the best they can with what they have.
Yes.
So full transparency, like, because like, people know how much I love my dogs. I've got 3 dogs. The girl in our logo, her name is Dola, and she is a representation of my little pit mix I adopted from the shelter. But she, before her, my very first dog, to be totally honest, I got 10 years ago from a breeder.
Right.
And I got him from a puppy store, and he's a shepherd husky mix. And now that I know about the AKC and what purebred means, I'm like, wait, how are you AKC? You're 2 breeds. So, he was on sale, not going to lie, but he's been the greatest thing ever. But again, like, I didn't know any better at that time.
And I just want to interrupt for just a brief second to say I'm not anti-breeder. There are great breeders out there. There's a reason for breeding, like you just said.
Yep.
So just want to throw that out there for a minute. But there are things people are paying way too much money for. If we think about the logic behind purebreds and the AKC, there's no reason people should be paying a mint for a mixed breed.
Yes, 100%. No, and I'm so glad you said that, because again, that is it kind of, what you'll learn about us. Well, maybe I'm more at fault of this, but I love tangents. And they're like my favorite pastime to participate in them. But so like Candy said, I think another thing that makes us really unique is, one, not just rushing to judgment. Like, if someone does something, we're not like gonna condescend them. We're not going to condemn them for making that decision. We're first gonna be like, hey, why'd you do that?
Right.
Tell us about what got you here. And that really, like you said, plays into the breeding aspect, right? Where it's, it's more about educating people about
what are you really paying for? What are you really getting? What should you be paying for what you're getting?
Yeah.
What should you be looking for in a reputable breeder, a breeder that won't leave you at risk with genetic issues or health issues or things like that. So we'll dive deep into that. But I think maybe we should explain a little bit better that we have this overarching group called Laws Saving Paws, and our initiatives with Laws Saving Paws is better legislation, education, and advocacy for animals. And then what the Bark is an initiative that's part of Laws Saving Paws, and that's where we just get to talk to the public about different topics. It could be medical. It could be, let's talk about the touchy subject of breeders. Let's talk about what a shelter is versus what a rescue is and how they function and operate. So those are our goals, is that education. How are people who don't own pets still impacted by the pet crisis? So that's where the Bark is really where we'll dig into all of this messy conversation. We welcome feedback. We ask that you be kind in your feedback, kind and just hear us out while also providing your kind perspective, so that we can continue these conversations without cutting each other off, without, hurting each other's feelings, things like that.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to really open up this discussion.
No, 100%. Thanks for roping us back. I got to give you we're gonna give you something to corral me.
Yeah.
I think every time I go off.
Baseball signals.
We need, totally. Oh, I can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome. But yeah, so it's funny because just kind of speaking a little more to the Bark and what we do with the podcast, I think we experienced some barriers in, jumpstarting the fundraising for this. I think people say, I want to help the animals. Why are you doing a podcast? Where's this money going? No, I want to help Spot.
Right.
So people don't truly understand, to help Spot and Spot's litter of 11,000 dogs, you know, I mean, it starts with education and prevention. And I've tried, I'm not great at elevator pitches to begin with, but I've tried really hard to get mine down. And I think if I was stuck in an elevator, my pitch is great because I have all the time in the world. But I was talking to someone and I said to them recently, I said, do you see why we need a podcast? This is not something that we can just sum up in a social media post in 3 sentences. I mean, and
people
crazy.
Tend to not be aware of what's impacting them or going to impact them until they're in the middle of it. So, for example, right now there's a lot of parvo and distemper outbreaks impacting our shelters because there's so many dogs in shelters, and one comes in with an illness. You don't see the symptoms right away. And next thing you know, you've got an outbreak. And unfortunately, that means dogs that are euthanized because of illness. And when I say dogs, people tend to think of dogs who are euthanized as older or aggressive or ill. And in the reality, even when you have a 1-year-old dog that catches parvo or distemper, they're put down, and it's really sad to end a life at that 1-year mark, sometimes even earlier. So these are things that, again, no judgment, but people are just not aware, and we want to catch them earlier. There's a lot of people who graduate high school, they marry their high school sweetheart, or maybe they don't. They get married soon after, they have kids. They want to have that puppy right away. And I'm ready. I'm at the age to grow my family.
This is the next step.
Yes. And they don't know what they're getting when they buy that puppy on the side of the road, or that's contributing to the pet overpopulation. They don't know that they could bring a sick puppy back home to other dogs that are in the home. They don't realize the struggle it will be to raise that puppy, especially while you're raising an infant or a toddler.
Yeah.
So again, these are just those topics where we see cracks in the plan, and we want to address them. We want to give people food for thought. I'll give you an example. I follow a lot of Facebook pages and whatnot when it comes to pets. And one time I saw a post where a man said, I have this 8-week-old puppy. He's not potty training well. I just need to find him a new home. I need to find a different puppy dog. And I very kindly said, sir, puppies typically can't grasp potty training until they're 16 weeks or older.
Yeah.
So I understand that you're going to surrender this dog, but the next puppy that you get needs to be an appropriate age for potty training. Right. And he was very respectful, very kind. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. I just didn't know that. Thank you for explaining.
Right.
Happy to move on to a dog that's age appropriate for what I need in my home. He just couldn't manage a potty training dog that was not going to catch on to potty training for 4 more weeks, you
Right.
know, or I'm sorry, it would have been 8 more weeks
Yep.
because he had the.
Well, and I don't know when this conversation happened, but for instance, I mean, if that happened last month or
Right.
even in the last year, and that guy said, "Hey, I'm going to surrender. It's not working out." Nowadays, you can't even do it. I
Right.
mean, and those are the implications of the full, of the animal population creating shelters and rescues that are always full.
Right.
It removes the path for someone to be a responsible pet owner too. Because
Right.
someone who, and even aside from this person, people face economic hardship.
Right.
They leave abusive relationships. There are life changes that happen in the blink of an eye.
Right.
And just they're unable to take care of their animal anymore. And these people have no path to responsibly and safely
Mhm.
like rehome or surrender their animal. And so it's creating what we're doing. We're hoping to help create better pathways for people
Right.
to be responsible.
Right. And also, like, you have
yeah.
a death in the family. The saddest thing I hear is like grandma or grandpa passed away and nobody in the family can take their dog. You know, that one breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't think any of my family members would take my dog.
Yeah.
Yes, I did just throw all you under the bus. Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about a lot of that in all of our episodes. And I mean, this is kind of just the glimpse into it. But and for those of you who may be listening, watching, who are like, well, I like guinea pigs. How does this affect me? Well,
Yeah. The shelters are taking in guinea pigs as well. Some of them.
Oh, are
Some
they?
of them.
I didn't know that. That is not the point I was making. But
Sorry.
no, it's hilarious. I love it.
I will say not all of them by far. So it's a little rare, I think, that you'll have a shelter or human
Yes.
society that will take them in.
Yes.
So.
Well, what I'm saying is like, you may not have a dog, have a cat. You may not even, particularly care for animals, and that's fine.
Right.
To each their own. However, the animal crisis, the overpopulation impacts those people as well because, the more animals there are that need care, the more strain on the municipal facilities that take care of them. I can't say that word.
Municipalities?
The municipalities. They are funded by taxpayers.
Right.
And so it impacts you. And on our website, I'd like to think, we outline it pretty well. We've got a bunch of buckets of people. It's, who are you? Are you a farmer? Do you like nature? Do you like outdoor events? Do you pay taxes? Like, here's how the animal overpopulation impacts you. Yeah. So it's really just shining a light on that because ultimately, and Candy, like you can probably speak to this too, but in taking a step back at all of the reactions to the things happening with animals, like I said, you have freaking 600 rescues per city.
Yeah.
And that are unregulated, mind you.
Yes. Yes.
You have so many rescues and
I've been with rescues and I've had to leave. Yeah.
yeah, see? I mean, and that's like a whole another episode. But so there are those. And then, you have roaming dogs, you have abandoned dogs, you have all of these things. And you take a step back and you can't just put a Band-Aid on that one problem.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said earlier about taxpayers paying for shelter operations, a shelter building, shelter, food for the dogs, employees, things like that. Just something to point out for the bark. We are in Tennessee, so we'll be focusing on Tennessee. So for the Tennesseans who listen, I'm going to give an example here. We know that the tax dollars are always stretched and we don't want our taxes to go up. But if we have a bucket of money going to a shelter and it's not enough and we have to expand that shelter, it's even more money that we're taking out of the common bucket. So one of the big problems that's always been an issue in Nashville is for the potholes on 440, which thank you to the lady from Waffle House. I cannot remember your name, but I love you for getting that fixed. But 440 used to be the joke of the day because of all the potholes. Well, if we didn't have to stretch our dollars into the shelter, would we have more pothole money? is kind of something to think about. You know, when we have more resources for children's programs, for the arts, for so on and so forth, this pet overpopulation is a very manageable issue if we all got on board. And going back to what you were saying, even if you don't own a pet, if we could get this under control, if your voice, if your opinion could help us rally around this area of need, this is one area where we could better manage tax dollars, for example, and, reallocate those funds to other areas.
Right. And I do thank you for kind of clarifying that. And one thing I will say as well, we are certainly not saying that these shelters should not be supported at all by our tax dollars, right?
No,
we want them to thrive. We want them to have the money and the resources to do what they need to do. But
we don't want them operating more than they have to.
Well, right. And I mean, gosh, that creates I'm sure they're seeing their own struggles internally, even staffing, volunteers. They're probably of other strain. There's a lot of strain that we're not seeing.
Right.
Because there's so many animals. So what we are constantly proposing are using those tax dollars and the expansion and the support of shelters in conjunction with preventative measures.
Right. We need out of the box ideas to really, we keep doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing, and knock, it's not working.
Right.
So we can put people on the moon, but we can't figure out how to manage pets in our own home.
We can. We just don't want to.
Right. So
but yeah,
this is, I think our group is kind of a call to action to hey guys, we have an issue here. We need to pay attention to. Let's do it kind of thing.
Absolutely. So. And it's from what I've seen in my short time in Tennessee, I've only been here it's been almost 2 years. And listen, I don't come from California. I don't come from a place where I want to come and shift an entire culture. And I think that's another unique thing about LSP and what we're doing, is that there are things fundamentally that people, again, they just do here in Tennessee. They have working dogs, right?
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We just want to make sure everyone's taken care of adequately. You know what I mean?
Right. Let's talk about that shift in culture. Maybe we can compare to the Truth Campaign.
Yes. That's I had it on the tip of my tongue. And then my mind went in another direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for those of you who might be my age-ish, you might remember the Truth Campaign in high school or middle school, or, as you were going to college. I still have my big orange shirt from high school with the Truth Campaign on it. And what the Truth Campaign was an anti-tobacco organization, and they weren't lobbying against, maybe they were lobbying, I don't know, but their big push was to educate youth. That way, it doesn't matter what's happening with lobbying. It doesn't matter what's happening with sales or marketing or whatever. We're going to educate. That way, our youth, and even some adults were listening too. Maybe, you had a parent who smoked that was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize these were the effects of tobacco, and maybe me smoking around my kid, whatever. But it was about education, not judgment. And it equipped young adults to make their own informed decisions about tobacco. And we really, because of campaigns like that, we really saw a strong decline in tobacco use for that generation. Good job, guys. And that's where, you mentioned changing a culture. And I think that's where we do want to change a culture. There are other cities, there are other states, there are other countries who are doing 10 times better than we are, because they're putting structure around these issues. And that's, I think, what we want to do here in Tennessee, of course. But if we can allow that to reach broader areas, of course, we'd want that for other states and so on.
Right. No, and I think I'm glad you made that point, because it reminds me too of, we often get the question, well, laws saving paws, what's the law part of that?
Right.
Right. And we have to remember with the Truth Campaign, it was a shift in beliefs based on education, empowering people to make better decisions for themselves. Organically, as those beliefs shifted, came, I don't know how to describe it, but I mean, cultural modifications, even in social settings, right? you can't smoke in a restaurant anymore.
Or on an airplane.
Yeah. So things like that just naturally followed as you began to see the shift in culture.
Right.
What followed even further behind that is legislative change.
Right.
So the laws in Laws Saving Paws, for example, is not just us saying, hey, there's a problem, let's slap a law on it. That's
right. We need the culture
answer, right?
to support and follow. Yes.
Exactly. So that's not it. I think that's our end goal, right? We want legislation to follow the trends of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not something we do right away. And so I think figuring out what the Truth Campaign was doing, I mean, it was when we had kind of created our model of how we were going to do this. Candy, actually, kudos to you. You brought it to our attention, and I was like, holy moly, that's what we're doing.
Right, exactly.
It was really, really cool. So I just want to remind folks because we do often get that question or that suggestion. We need laws, we need mandates.
Yeah.
But we will dedicate, we'll dedicate a lot more time in the future talking about that and how there are areas with laws. They don't work. They're
not always implemented. And we need the voice of the people because we need, somebody will see something that shouldn't be happening. And they're like, well, I don't want to cause problems with my neighbor or my family member or my this or my that.
Yeah.
And we need the culture to be there to say, no, this is wrong. And we need to speak up and we need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Retaliation is a real thing. I feel like I have a friend recently who she had a cat that kept coming over to her. She knew where it lived.
Yeah.
But she knew maybe it wasn't being taken care of really well. And so we went to the shelter just to see like what our options were. And, part of the reason she said she has trouble confronting her neighbors about it. And by confronting, it's not aggressive, right? But it's just having a conversation, right? Hey, is this your cat? Did you notice this? This was happening?
Right.
But part of the reason that I think a lot of people have trouble is that fear of retaliation.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's so much scary things going on in this world, and people don't always have the right words. They can come off abrasively and then it escalates from there.
Yeah.
And then you just have this ridiculous situation that crops up. So,
but there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but we don't want to see anything like that come about.
Right.
So I mean, that's really what we're here about. And again, these are things that cannot be summed up in an elevator, right? I mean, they can't be summed up in a 35-second,
here's all the
conversation with someone. I mean, because the ripple effects are massive. I mean, when I first started LSP back in the fall, it was when I had just gotten the website up. And one of the first contact submissions I had, it was a woman who had reached out to me from Arizona. And she said, do you have any suggestions for how to regulate rescues? Because we live in an area where there's so many rescues and the quality of them. She had concerns about what was happening. And honestly, at that point in time, I had not even considered that impact.
That the rescue themselves could be a problem.
I had not even considered it. And so it was just so fascinating though, because I was like, I mean, fascinating, discouraging, kind of scary that this is happening in so many places.
Yeah.
It just really shed light on another issue that, again, we believe confidently is a result of the animal overpopulation.
Right.
So, Candy, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to, speaking of rescues and shelters as well. There are some shelters that are maybe not doing everything that they should be doing, whether that's ethically, process-wise, or even legally. Yeah. So, there's a lack of oversight in some of these areas. There is, speaking of shelters, we have some shelters that I want to talk about kind of euthanasia and where people think that this pet overpopulation, dogs end up in the shelter because they're old or they're aggressive or this or that and the other. We here have the Nashville, the Metro Animal Care and Control. We also have Memphis. They're both full. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against these shelters. I look at the pet overpopulation or the stream of dogs coming in and out of a shelter as a reflection of the community, not the reflection of the shelter. So just want to say that. But I do want to address the issue where people think that, okay, yeah, there's always going to be a euthanasia rate, and those dogs being euthanized are old or aggressive or medically ill. And that's not the case. I do a lot of rescue work. And what that means is I write profiles for rescues. I help with getting dogs out of the shelters. I transport dogs. I will do transport about an hour and a half away. And what us transporters do is we'll each take about an hour, hour and a half segment, and we'll get the dogs from Memphis across Tennessee to rescues in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, so on and so forth. It's a huge mission. But I do want to say even with all this work, there's still I want to say at Memphis, it's about a good 100 dogs a month being euthanized. And one of the recent lists that I looked at, the oldest dog on that list was 3 years old. There were puppies. Yeah. There were, and when I say puppies, like we're talking, maybe 3 months old. But everyone on that list was between puppy age and 3 years old, not medically ill, not aggressive, things like that. So that is one of the big things, if you're listening right now, I want you to know it's not all the situational issues, the dogs having situational issues where they need to be euthanized. We're down to pure pet overpopulation in some of these instances. And that's why we're here. And that's why we really need your attention, your help, your wise dog adoption measures. You know, we need you to be wise, because when you're buying a dog off the side of the road, that teaches that person who says they had a whoopsie litter to go back and have another whoopsie litter, because they just made $100 off that dog.
But here's the thing too, and I will say I've seen a lot of whoopsie litters, but they're just giving away their dogs. I do purely believe they're accidents, but
some of them are giving away and some of them are charging. And I get when you're charging because you need to be reimbursed for vaccines. But
I'll bet not a lot of them are vaccinated. Are you kidding?
Right. So I've had where somebody went and bought a puppy for, I want to say it was less than $150. And the dog was AKC registered and had vaccines. And they went and got this puppy and it didn't look so great. And we'll talk more about this puppy later because this was a truly lesson learned puppy. But when they couldn't leave that puppy there, they knew that something was wrong. The dog stunk. And was kind of covered in perfume. And when they were like, we cannot leave this puppy here no matter what. They paid the money. They took the puppy. When they looked at those AKC records, it was an AKC form to register for AKC. It was not.
It wasn't the actual.
So they advertise as an AKC form.
Right.
Then, you have they're vaccinated. Unless you get that vaccine record, even if the person does the vaccines from Tractor Supply.
Yeah.
You're supposed to save the labels and everything. And that goes with the puppy. Unless you're being handed that off, those vaccines, you don't know whether that puppy was ever vaccinated or not. Yeah. And a veterinarian won't acknowledge that, or a boarding place or anything like that will not acknowledge, we bought it from Joe Schmo. And Joe Schmo is going to get blamed for a lot of things on the show.
Poor Joe.
Right. With Joe Schmo, when we bought the dog, said the dog was vaccinated. It doesn't count unless you have that. So you just paid, let's say, $150 for nothing.
But I will say, and this is, I understand, I can sympathize with people who do this. That person who paid that money for that dog may not have even cared. They just wanted to get it out. They wanted to make sure it didn't end up in a hole, in a Tupperware bin, in the woods, which really happens, by the way. Like I have a picture. But so, and that's kind of part of the bigger problem that we will talk about on this show is, helping the dogs.
The best way, the best methods.
It's enabling people. It's the supply and demand.
Right. If I see somebody giving away dogs, yes, that's also dangerous.
Yeah.
But I'm more inclined to like, okay, I can help here. I can connect you with a rescue. We can get those dogs vetted, vaccinated. That's what people don't the consumer doesn't understand. When you go to a rescue, you're paying one of my rescues charges $150. The other one charges $250. And they're like, but I can get a dog on the side of the road for $100. Yes. But that dog is not vaccinated nor fixed.
Yeah.
When you get from a rescue, especially here in Tennessee, legally, a rescue is supposed to fix the dog before it goes off. And if you compare rates to a veterinarian, the regular veterinarians near me, the rate to fix a dog, like even a small dog, and it depends on weight, it starts at $350.
Yeah.
So you're already getting a deal with a vetted and vaccinated dog, vetted, vaccinated, and fixed dog when you're paying $150 to $250.
Right.
And people don't realize, okay, I paid $150 for this dog. Now I have to go and turn around and pay, let's say $550 for everything that the dog needs, just medically, not counting a bed, toys, a good bath, So, those are things that people just aren't realizing when they're comparing rates or what they're getting.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. And they just want to help. Again, it kind of goes back to, we do think most people are doing what they think is the right thing, right? Or the best thing, I should say. It's just something, again, that can't be summed up in even one episode of this. If we're being honest.
Much to talk about.
So that's something we'll dive in later in the season. I don't know. Do you call podcasts a season? Right?
Oh,
season.
Yep.
We're getting nods from our producer.
From the officials.
Yes. From the official. Yeah. I'm going to get him a striped jersey. It's going to be awesome.
Yes.
So some other things that we're going to talk about on upcoming episodes. We leaned into it a little today. Breeders, what we need to know. And even again, if you are interested in a true purebred, we're not... No harm, no foul. We're going to show you how to look for one that is being ethically breeded.
Yeah.
And then, Candy also mentioned, shelter stigma, talking about the impact it has on, the euthanasia rates and things like that. And, the animals that are actually in the shelter, right? Planning for dog ownership. This is a good one. What the animal overpopulation looks like in the North versus the South.
Right.
Because my friend in Maine got his dog from Tennessee. Yeah. And when he told me that, I go, of course you did. Of course you did.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting though, because when they're being shipped up there, and I mean, their law, I come from New Hampshire. I just learned, I thought our laws were really good. But I looked and we're not that high on the list. I was like, that's interesting. But anyways, just to kind of take a peek at maybe what things are regulating.
What's helping the situation.
In other areas.
Northern states as a lesson that to the South that we can do better. We can absolutely do better.
We can do better.
And we don't have to be in this crisis.
Right.
So.
Well, 100%. So, yep. And then obviously we're going to talk a lot about legislation, identifying gaps, loopholes, and voids, because what a lot of people don't know is that we actually already have quite a few laws in place that should help reduce the problems we're seeing now. But for whatever reason, they're not enforced, or there are loopholes that prevent someone from being apprehended. And I don't know if I just learned this maybe several months ago when I was volunteering at my shelter, but there is an animal abuse registry in Tennessee.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. There are not many people on it, in my opinion. Based on all the things I see, I'm like, why are there so few people?
Yeah. We'll get into talking about how training or enforcement is focused on some areas, and animal issues is definitely not one of them.
100%. So and kind of with that, with the future discussions we have, we are going to facilitate conversations with industry experts, we say, right? We're hoping to chat with animal attorneys, or, people who work in rescue, or, I even had a great conversation with a groomer the other day who recognized that there was a dog not being taken care of and her hands were tied. She's like, we're literally not allowed to say anything, or, our words have merit. And so just folks like that, maybe some shelter staff. I'm dying to find someone, dying literally. Can you hear it? To talk to an ACO.
Yeah.
But that may be a little dicey. I feel like we'd have to find an ACO who is no longer an ACO.
Right. I mean, any listeners who know someone.
Yeah, that is like was like a really, really not so subtle way of saying you should let us know if
I want to talk to a vet. I want to talk.
Oh yeah, that's too. Yeah, totally, of course. And I'm gonna forget to say this, so I'm just gonna say it now. If you are interested in being a part of our conversation, like we are hoping to kind of engage more with our listeners and our viewers, and we want to hear what you have to say, what you're thinking. So you can email us at thebark@lawssavingpaws.org. Additionally, if you're, following us on Facebook or watching this on YouTube, we'll go through and take a look at the comments and, pull some that we think would be really good conversation pieces. But regardless, we want to hear from you. And if we really want to hear from you, we'll find you.
Yes.
So
I think we have some people in the rescue pet medical arena that we have a little list that we'll be reaching out. We'd like to hear what you have to say, your feedback, and your ideas, of course.
Yes. So thank you guys. And again, thebark@lawssavingpaws.org if you want to send us an email, and you can visit lawssavingpaws.org to check out our website and see everything we're up to. And that's a wrap.